Well, on Tuesday, folks, we will finally have the 53-man roster right in front of our faces. After months and months of preseason training camp, several OTAs, I think we've all had our share of speculation of particular sweethearts that might shock the world to make the roster, and so on and so forth. The Buffalo Bills have already announced their first round of cuts yesterday, and for all I know, there could be several more cuts announced after I upload this video, but I put together something on Google Sheets where I have handpicked all 53, and I've also wanted to make it a goal in this video to address all of the narratives attached to a couple of players, and then also some players that I genuinely believe can really make a day one contribution. So sound off in the comments as I go through all of this. Let me know if you agree or you disagree. As you know, I love keeping my channel super conversational with my audience. And fun fact, I will be live reacting to the actual 53-man roster tomorrow at 4 p.m. EST. So make sure you subscribe and turn on those bell notifications so you do not miss that. I'm so close to 25,000 subscribers. Thank you all. I love you. But as you can see, folks, I have put together this Google Sheet right here, and let's start off with the quarterback room. I think Josh Allen and Mitchell Trubisky are the only two that we carry on this roster. Now, speaking of narratives, Mitchell Trubisky has been getting eviscerated by Bills Mafia on X and the vast majority of social media. Several people have been retweeting anytime that a backup quarterback is now available. And so I've heard that people want a shot at Ryan Tannehill, maybe even Mike White, who was recently released from the Miami Dolphins. And folks, I just don't see this Buffalo Bills team bringing in another quarterback for the backup situation. Genuinely, it doesn't matter who the backup is. If Josh Allen goes down at any point during this season, the season is over. Our cap space is currently sitting at about $10 million. We've already paid Mitchell Trubisky a significant amount, and there's so many other holes that we would potentially have to address. During this season, with a limited amount of money, I don't see us bringing in anybody else. But the good thing is that the Buffalo Bills are not the only team that has to go through this worry. Most teams in the NFL are absolutely screwed if their starter goes down, with the exception of about 3 or 4. This is not unique territory. A lot of fan bases are going through it. Let's just cross our fingers and hope that Josh Allen can once again continuously go through this season unharmed. So we have the QB room at Josh Allen and then Mitchell Trubisky. Next up, we have running back and fullback. I did include Reggie Gilliam in this because I think there's no way he does not make this team. This is one of the few offenses that still appreciates the fullback, so lock him down for a roster. James Cook, Ray Davis, Ty Johnson, and Frank Gore Jr. Now, many of you who watch my content might know that I always stray away from romanticizing a player just because he was related to a great. But at the end of the day, while Frank Gore Jr. does have some question marks when it comes into pass blocking based off of his more small stature, this guy ended the entire preseason in the NFL as the highest graded running back. This could have to do with the fact that he saw the most snaps, and he was also going up against third and fourth stringers. However, I have a feeling that he has genuinely done enough to really secure a role right here. That is right, 5 running backs on the roster, pretty crazy. But hear me out on this. I think that Frank Gore has done enough. Super excited about James Cook. Super excited about Ray Davis. I do think that Ray Davis will eventually end up taking over that RB1 responsibility as the season progresses. But that's where I have at the running back room. Now, moving on to wide receiver, I was battling back and forth of whether or not this team was going to roll with 5 wide receivers or 6. 7 was never in the conversation. However, we can get the first 5 out of the way, which are absolute locks. Curtis Samuel, Shakir, Coleman, MVS, and then Mac Hollins, who has really proven himself to not exclusively be a special teams kind of guy. I think that he is going to be incorporated in this offense in general, and we should be excited about it. Now it came down into that overall 6th spot, and I think I'm going to have to give it to Terrell Shavers. Many of you might have wanted Hamler or Isabella or Shorter, maybe. I do know that a lot of you exist. I think Shavers ends up locking it down based off of his performance in the training camp. And there's really no need to keep Hamler or Isabella on this squad when it appears that Daquan Hardy, the corner that we drafted in this previous draft, appears to be the favorite to take over the kick return and the punt return role. So I think we roll with 6 this year. Would not be shocked if we only ran with 5, and Shavers is the odd man out. Now, Then it comes down into the tight end room. I have Dalton Kincaid, I have Dawson Knox, and I have Quinton Morris. Zach Davidson was certainly a fan favorite. He did very well during a lot of his opportunities in training camp and also in the preseason. However, I think Sean McDermott and company and Joe Brady are going to want to bring in some sort of familiarity. Zach Davidson, I think, would be an incredible practice squad candidate, but unfortunately, this is the brutal reality. I could certainly see a team that's tight end hungry actually go on ahead and pick him up before he ends up going all the way through waivers. But right now, exclusively 3 tight ends on this squad: Kincaid, Knox, and Morris. Now, next up, it comes into the offensive line. As you can see, I broke it down per position, but also keep in mind that a lot of these players have the opportunity of being able to move around the line. I've noticed a lot of Bills beat reporters on X suggest that we only took 9 offensive linemen. I just don't agree with that. I think that when it comes into this team's identity of what Joe Brady is trying to do, depth on this overall unit needs to be priority number 1. And we all know how difficult it is to really go out and find some offensive line help. Say, for example, an injury does occur. So I see us sticking with quite a few. Deion Dawkins, Ryan Van Denmark, and Tylen Grable are locking down the left tackle depth chart. Shout out Grable. He has been showing some flashes. I feel good about him actually being listed second in the depth chart in case Deion were to go down. I think that he would actually do relatively well. And then Van Denmark obviously is going to be an incredible depth piece for us. Left guard is a different situation. We have David Edwards and Alec Andreesen. As many of you know, I am very nervous about Connor McGovern taking over the center role. I'm even more nervous about him leaving the left guard role because him and Dawkins were elite in the Bills' run game last year, being able to open up that A gap for James Cook. That's why we could all of a sudden run the football. I'm nervous that David Edwards is not going to be able to be a good running mate for Deion. We saw a couple of instances during the preseason where James Cook attempted to hit that A gap, where normally he dominated last year, and we just didn't see the same results. So in an ideal world, I would love McGovern to go back to left guard and then roll the dice on Cedric Van Pran Granger at center. But regardless, that's who I have at the left guard position. But then number 1, keep Alec Andreesen as far away from the center position. We saw that experiment failed. Exclusively on the left side and second in the depth chart. Center, obviously, we have Connor McGovern and Cedric Van Pran Granger. I thought that he did wonderful in his overall opportunities. He had a bad batch snap, and I'm talking about Cedric Van Pran, by the way, during the final preseason game, but his run blocking is there, his pass blocking is there. Just some things to polish up, but I feel super comfortable about him backing up McGovern. Right guard, obviously, is Osiris Torrance, and then right tackle is Spencer Brown, and then Lyle Collins. I saw a couple of projections say that Lyle Collins would not make this squad. I don't see a reason why you would cut a guy that has so much versatility. He can play right tackle, right guard, left guard, really anywhere with the exception of center. If, for example, we have issues with the left guard, throw Lyle Collins in there. I know that he has a lot of an injury history, but he's way too versatile for me to keep off. As you guys can see, I am rolling with 10 offensive linemen in 2024. So now moving over to the defense, let's talk about the edge position, folks. We have Gregory Rousseau, Dwayne Smoot, AJ Epinesa, Von Miller, and then my boy, Javon Solomon. I'll be completely honest with you, I had zero faith in Smoot the second that we signed him during the offseason, but he has shut me up. I thought that he was just a bust. He was a shell of what he once was over in Jacksonville, but for some reason, he seems to be really working like a well-oiled machine in this McDermott overall defense. Several snaps with the first team all training camp look good in his few preseason opportunities. Super excited to see what he can do. We even heard flashes from Von Miller. And we get 7 sacks out of Von Miller this year, 10 plus pressures. We could only hope. And then obviously with Javon Solomon, absolutely lethal when it comes into run defense, sets the edge perfectly, and I think there's a lot of upside in this traditionally undersized defensive end, but also the same defensive end that led all of college football in sacks last year. So, as you can see, 5 defensive ends. Defensive tackle, I have Daquan Jones, I have Austin Johnson, who really made a name for himself during training camp, Ed Oliver, and then, of course, Dwayne Carter. A little slim in the defensive tackle position, right? Worst case scenario, I do see Eli Ankou making the practice squad. If we were to suffer any sort of injury, I 1,010% could see us elevating him. However, I really wanted to sacrifice one of these position groups for one less player to add on to the trenches, since I think it is so important for the success of 2024. So that's the defensive tackle room. Linebacker is interesting. I have us running with 5. And here's the deal. I have Dorian Williams. I have Nicholas Morrow. I have Joe Andreesen. That is right. Buffalo Joe made this team. He made a name for himself out in the preseason. You have Terrell Bernard, and then you also have Ulofoshio. Now, the linebacker position is interesting because you'll notice that I have Milano and Balin Spector highlighted in blue, meaning that they were placed on the IR, but they are designated to return at least at one point during the season. I'm not sure when Spector is going to be coming back, but I know that Matt Milano likely, at best case scenario, wouldn't be back until about December, right before a playoff run. I think we roll with 5 linebackers exclusively for the fact is that we got cooked in the playoffs last year for losing all of our linebackers, and I never want another situation where A.J. Klein has to go up against Travis Kelce in any sort of meaningful game ever. I think Ulofoshio, normally, if Milano or Spector did not go down, I would have seen him as a cut. However, just by the graces of the football gods, for his sake, we do have some injuries, and I do think that he will still be a pretty solid special team contributor. Now, next up is the corner room, folks. I have Rasul Douglas, I have Kyer Elam, Daquan Hardy, Christian Benford, and Taron Johnson. Now, this depth still concerns me a tad, but really outside of our starters, I have a lot of faith in Daquan Hardy. I know we're all excited about him being the kick returner and the punt returner, but with all of the opportunities he had being second string slot corner, dude is really playing the part. Very excited about this, right? Kyer Elam, many would assume that he would be on the trade block, but at the end of the day, our depth is such a concern at this point. Why would we trade away one extra player, worsen our depth situation, and only receive a 4th or a 5th round pick? I really don't think we would get much better for a Kyer Elam trade, if you will. So that's what we're rolling with corner. I have Cam Lewis. You could go on ahead and list him as a corner. He's played safety. He's played corner, but he ends up locking down a spot. Taylor Rapp, Damar Hamlin, Mike Edwards, and Cole Bishop. I love Cole Bishop, I sincerely do, but don't expect him to have any meaningful snaps until at least halfway through the season. He missed the entire training camp. It's going to take time for him to ramp up. Great news that Mike Edwards seems to be back. He might be a full go during week 1. And then, obviously Rapp and Damar Hamlin have earned their stripes. And then last but not least, we have special teams, Tyler Bass, Sam Martin, and Reed Ferguson. Now, obviously, I need to talk about Tyler Bass, or as many of us are calling nowadays, Tyler Ass. Yes, guys, he is a liability. No, unfortunately, there is no other option. He went 7 for 13 during this last week's practice, and I would be lying to you if my anxiety will not be at an all-time high every single time I hear that Tyler Bass is running out to the field for a field goal attempt. I look at it this way. Number 1, we can cut this guy, and then we can add dead cap onto our already pretty slim cap situation for the next 2 years. Or number 2, we end up looking for any undrafted free agent from college football, but how much would we trust that guy over somebody who's already familiar with our overall system? And then number 3, this is obviously the biggest case of the yips you have ever seen in your entire life. Tyler Bass needs to win that battle in his head and really deliver. If not, Joe Brady, I hope that we reach the end zone more than any other team in the NFL, and pray to God that the Buffalo Bills' victories this year are by a massive point differential. So yes, with Tyler Bass, he definitely concerns me, but that's just what we're going to have to roll with as of yet. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in to yet another edition of the Dom Mafia Report. That is my 53-man roster. Please sound off in the comments. Let me know your thoughts. And I certainly look forward to live reacting to the actual roster dropping sometime tomorrow. Smash that like button, subscribe, and turn on bell notifications, and I will see you tomorrow.